that?
The company, one of the main companies that's going to be providing, allegedly, the electricity to operate all of those electric cars is no less than PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric. Now,
and I'll bet you, without even having read one word of the story, that PG&E was a major lobbyist to get that bill passed.
I don't know. It's a great question. It's a great question.
I thought so too.
I don't know, Nick. Nick, you're being too cynical. Sometimes
I don't think I'm cynical enough.
You're just too jaded. That question is the kind of question that a totally cynical, jaded person would ask. But you have to love it.
Color me jaded, because
you have to love it.
Just you know.
By the way,
this is what happens when.
If you've
go ahead,
I just want to point out that if you've never been to California, and I'm pretty sure you have, Nick, but for those of you who've never been to California, it is a spectacularly beautiful state. Once you get out of the big cities, like Los Angeles and south, getting on towards Mexico, no disrespect to Mexico, that's not my point. But if you get into the interior of California and then you start moving, more up north, it is really, really beautiful country. If it wasn't for the fact that I was living in Canada, so it would have to be, would have to move. There's Nick attacking his laptop again.
I'm trying to be quiet.
I'd live in California, and of course I had a daughter and son-in-law that were living in California for a year and a half before they'd had enough and they moved back to, of all places, New York City. Oh dear. Took the grandchildren with them, so they're a lot closer now. But I'm telling you, California is a really lovely place. Just with a government that is so kooky, and unfortunately a population, at least in the Los Angeles area, and that keeps on electing these crazy Democratic governments down there. But when you get inland, beautiful place.
There's an old saying, Joseph: you get the government you deserve.
You know what, Nick? That is absolutely true enough. That's absolutely true enough. And it's too bad.
If they keep electing them, it's hard, because I just said in the chat room, can you blame them? If I was living in California under those conditions, I'd move to Texas too. And he was talking, the comment was, the Texans are mad because all the people from California are moving to Texas. Well, guess what?
Well, here's the irony. Okay, this is the problem, and I've been hearing this more and more on talk radio in the United States, is that there are people that are fleeing, these jurisdictions like California, jurisdictions like New York City. They move to the suburbs where there's a little bit more sanity, etc. And after fleeing, they vote in governments that just start to impose exactly the policies that they've fled when they move to the suburbs. And this is what you're going to see in a place like Texas, which is a beautiful, beautiful state as well. Very different from California. And in a heartbeat, I would move to Texas. In a heartbeat, I would move to Texas if I had the ability to do it. It's a lovely place. But what you have is these people fleeing the crazy, high-tax, low intelligence in government jurisdiction that California has become, and they move to Texas, and they bring along this addiction, if you will, this adherence to the kinds of policies that cause the problems that they fled in the first place. And that's a serious problem.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, you would think they'd go, oh, thank God we don't have to live like that anymore. But they're not in every case, but we see a lot of this in people who move from the city to the country for the peace and quiet and the quiet lifestyle. But when they get here, they want to impose city regulations on their neighbors, forgetting the fact that the neighbors were here before they were, and the neighbors, a lot of them are agriculturally based. They've got livestock. Sometimes that livestock escapes their containment field, if I can use a Star Trek term. Just, horses and cattle will break a fence, and the next thing you know, they're running down the road. Well, that's just life in the country. Or you'll get a rooster at, in the summertime at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, start to crow, and the neighbors file a complaint with the town for noise violation and want to change what makes the country wonderful into what they left. It's the same mentality. And eventually, of course, a lot of them realize, okay, that was dumb, and get out of that, move out of that mindset. But at the same time, some of them never give that fight up, and I just shake my head when I see it.
It's crazy, Nick. But there's no accounting for human behavior. That's just the way it goes. And as I'm constantly telling my kids, and, as the grandchildren are starting to get older, I'm starting to tell them the same thing now. It's just, that's just the way people are. And the only difference between people today and people 500 years ago, they're just as gullible, they're just as flawed. But the problem today is that their capacity to damage the world and damage people around them is that much greater. Governments today, Nick, have the power and they control our lives. I'm going to sound like a real, conspiracy theorist here, okay? And I'm not, I'm not anti-government. I'm not a libertarian. I'm a conservative, as I've said many times, Nick, and I know you agree with that, okay? But the reality, the objective reality, the truth is that government today exercises a degree of control over our lives as allegedly free people than the worst tyrannies of 2 and 3 and 4 and 500 years ago throughout history. And that's just because of the advancements in technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, wow.
Well, you're making it hard to argue with that, Joseph.
Well, I wasn't expecting you to argue with me. I was expecting you to go along and agree.
Yeah, well, that's, I guess what I'm saying is agreeing with that only makes sense because through the power of the internet, through the power of social media, through the power of the propaganda the government puts out on a regular basis and the invasiveness in our everyday lives, that simply wasn't possible in times before. Like even in the darkest days of the Russian Empire under Stalin, you had, in order to be discovered for anti-governmental thinking, somebody had to pick up a phone or whisper in an ear. They couldn't watch what you were doing online because online didn't exist. There was just, a lot of this stuff wasn't physically possible. So imagine Stalin's glee if he had the kind of power that Justin Trudeau has. He would be unbelievable. It would just blow his mind.
It's true, and it certainly is food for thought. Well, Nick.
Well, we don't like to see people go hungry, so.
Well, yeah. So I'm taking a look at the studio clock here, and I see that we're slowly making our way up to the top of the hour. And
already?
Yeah, we're getting close. So, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you tuning in to the live show again. If you're listening to this in the podcast, well, it's 4 podcasts. We're breaking each weekly episode into 4 half-hour parts. So part 1 and 2 are Thursday and Friday, respectively, posted on the internet. And part 3 and 4 are Monday and Tuesday. And then you get to listen to the live broadcast again on Wednesday night. So, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends and neighbors about us. Post go online, listen to the podcast, or at least grab the podcast and post it on social media. I know some of you are quite active in social media. We'd love to expand our listenership. And I guess that's pretty much it for me this week, Nick.
All right. Well, with that said, then I'm going to bow out as well. Thank you all for joining us this evening. As Joseph has said, it's been a treat, and we are working really hard and diligently to continuously improve the quality of the program, both in content and in listening ease. With that said, I wish you all a good night. Ubiceritas et amor, Deus CBS. Good evening, God bless. Don't let anything disturb your peace, and may you have a fair wind and a following sea.